Hello and welcome to this edition of Life of Hope. Thank you for joining us. I don't know if you've been in a relationship that didn't feel right. Maybe it was controlling, abusive in some way, and you didn't feel safe. Well, many of us have been in relationship like these in some form or other, and a lot of us don't know much about domestic abuse, and we don't understand it very well. So it's a great pleasure today to have a contribution. Linda, the CEO of Home-Start, very kindly agreed to do a video for us. We're going to show that in a few moments. So today is our second video on domestic abuse, and we're doing a further one next week. And this is such an important subject, so much in the news. My name is Colin. I'm an accredited counsellor working with a Baptist church in Hockcliffe Street, Leighton Buzzard. And every week or so, Rachel and I do these videos to help advise people and give a life of hope. So Rachel, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello everybody, it's nice to be here. I'm a counselling manager and also a counsellor at New Directions Counselling in Leighton Buzzard. It's great to be with you today, and I hope you find this information helpful and interesting, because it's a topic that has come to the media attention more recently due to COVID and also due to Euro 2021. So we're going to now see the video from Linda. Colin's going to put that on for us, and she's CEO of Home-Start and knows a lot about domestic abuse issues.
Thank you, Rachel and Colin, for asking me to come and speak about the important subject of domestic abuse. I'm really pleased to be here. Home-Start Central Bedfordshire is the children and family support charity. So do take a look at our website, home-startcentralbeds.org.uk. We offer a range of different support services to families across Central Bedfordshire and Luton around a variety of different issues, for example, mental ill health, disability, poverty, and also domestic abuse. We work with a number of other agencies in the area to provide help and support to survivors of domestic abuse. So it's a really big subject, but I thought that today I would put a little bit more meat on the bones of what actually domestic abuse is. And then next time I'll answer a few questions that I often come across, and along the way give some ideas of where help and information can be found. As Colin and Rachel have already said, domestic abuse is endemic in our society in the UK. It happens across all areas, classes, age groups, gender and sexuality. It's called domestic because it's where abuse occurs in an intimate relationship. So that could be between a couple or between family members, including children to parents. It most often happens behind closed doors, which is why we may not sometimes be aware that it's happening. And perpetrators can appear to be really lovely people and the pillars of society. We always used to talk about domestic violence, but this can actually be very confusing as violence may not occur. So the thing to remember is that domestic abuse is a pattern of behaviour that perpetrators use to control their victims. So it might include violence, but it might not always do that if the perpetrator can get what they want without using violence. They do it because they believe actually that they own the victim and that they're entitled to treat them as they want to. Interestingly, the tactics that perpetrators use are the same tactics that were used to brainwash and get false confessions from prisoners of war in past times. So what are these tactics? Well, firstly, the abuser will begin to isolate their partner. They do that so that the victim is focused entirely on serving their needs, but also so that they become dependent on them. Any friendships or family victims have become threats to the abuser. They might move their victims to a different part of the country, make it difficult for family and friends to visit, so actually they stop calling. Encourage their victims to stop working, or just make it very difficult to work. So that means that they don't have financial independence from the perpetrator. Abusers take away or control phones, they check all their communication, might do things like take one out of a pair of shoes away so that people can't actually get out of the house. They might even lock victims in the house. They control the money and maybe deprived the victims of basic things like medicines or food or things that the children need. So actually it's hard to leave or get help because they're always being watched. So this is part of the crime of coercive control. Another way in which abusers operate is to abuse sexually. Victims are made to do things that they don't want to do sexually. They get raped and hurt. And abusers might threaten to disclose private sexual photographs or films to others, so-called revenge porn, which since this year is an offence. And the purpose of this is to degrade, humiliate, and there we go again, control. A really damaging tactic is that of psychological and emotional abuse. You know, the old adage that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me is so not true. Abusers may convince their victims that they are fat, ugly, stupid, mat, undeserving, bad parents, and so gradually erode their confidence so that actually the victim becomes de-skilled and starts to feel that maybe they are these things and that maybe they are actually the problem rather than the abuser. They might do things like hide and move objects around the house until the victim thinks that they're going mad. This is called gaslighting, after the film in the 1940s. Abusers can be intimidating. I always talk about Phil Mitchell and on the EastEnders and how he behaves and looks. Home can be a very tense place. The whole family may be living on eggshells, just waiting for that key in the door, that rattle of the door lock. They may use intimidating behaviour such as shouting in your face, smashing the wall, driving erratically or too fast. This is proving that they could kill the victim if they want to. It's a little signal. They tell the victim that they will find them wherever they go. And if they do, they'll kill or harm them, their children, their pets, their family, and of course, sometimes they do. Of course, another obvious tactic to control is the use of violence or the threat of violence. You know, I'm talking about the victim as the partner, but as a children's charity, we're also very mindful of the fact that children in the home are also very much the victims, as has at last been recognised by the new Domestic Abuse Act. It used to be thought that if they hadn't actually been in the same room, they weren't affected, but we now know better. And domestic abuse can have long-standing effects on children right into their adulthood, no matter what age they are. And the other thing about this control is that even if people leave the relationship, it'll often continue after that. And children are very much a way that I see perpetrators using them to control. So that custody of children, the access visits, is very much used as a method of control. So that's that for the moment. So I hope that you've found that useful. Obviously, there's an awful lot more to it than that, but that's just a snapshot of what domestic abuse is and the tactics that perpetrators use to control people, to control their victims. Thank you.
Just want to thank Linda for that very powerful contribution, very helpful to help us understand what domestic abuse is all about. And after watching that, I just want to ask Rachel what she thinks about domestic abuse and how it might relate to faith. Any ideas, Rachel?
Well, sorry, Colin. One thing that came to me when I was thinking about the issue of domestic abuse from a Christian point of view is a quote from the Bible where it says something to the words to the effect of perfect love casts out fear. Now, this is the kind of love that God shows. it's flawless and beautiful love, so we don't need to be afraid if we're trusting God. Now, this kind of love is what God wants us to be showing in our home situations, in our families. So there's no place for fear. He wants us to be showing partners, he wants to be showing spouses and children, whether they're male or female, whatever our situation, he wants us to be showing the kind of love which is unconditional and basically not the kind of love that's controlling, that produces fear, because domestic abuse produces constant fear. So it's actually against what God teaches us to do, because he wants us to love. Colin, what do you think?
Yeah, watching that video and thinking about this subject really shows me how a relationship shouldn't be between two people. It's the complete opposite to a good relationship and what God wants for us. The controlling, the manipulation, the guilt, the condemnation, all that sort of stuff is totally wrong. And as I think about this, I'm thinking that, well, any sort of relationship can get into this state, and it also includes religion, because religion is a relationship with people, but also a relationship with a higher power. And some bad religion does have the same sort of hallmark as some of this domestic abuse that we've heard about, where people find that they're not being cared for, they're not respected, they don't have the independence and freedom, can't think. It's a form of brainwashing in some of these bad religions, and people can get caught up in these cults and they can't break out. So if you are in a situation in a religion of any kind where you feel that you don't have the freedom, you don't feel that it's quite right, there's something a little bit wrong, and that you're held there by for the wrong reasons, then pray, reach out for someone to help you. Try and get out of that and find some good religion, because there's such a difference between the two. Finally, Rachel, over to you.
If you need any help because you're going through domestic abuse, or if you know anybody else who is, you can contact the Bedfordshire Domestic Advice Helpline, Domestic Abuse Advice Helpline. Now, the telephone number is 0808 2000 247. 0808 2000 247, and you can find that on the internet if you want to Google it. You can find, just to check that it's all bona fide. Okay, it's genuine number. You can look it up. And we do hope today that you have found some of what we've said useful, or maybe useful for someone else, or just of interest. It's an important issue in society today. Please feel free to message us on our Life of Hope Facebook page, and we look forward to you joining us in the future. Bye for now from me.